Now, at the bottom of the list, I have ideology. Most of us spend 99% of our time on ideology. What I believe in, what I stand for, what my principles are. But remember this, when you are at war, political or military, your ideology don't matter because the laws of war are neutral. The laws of war are neutral. So if you get caught up on ideology while you're going to war, you will be defeated because the laws of war are neutral. So first we talk about political science and military science. What's the difference? They both involve war and they both involve combat. Military science is the art of what? Armed physical combat with your enemy. There is violence, there is aggression, it is direct, it is physical, it is in your face. That's military science. Political science is the art of what? Non-aggressive, non-combative warfare. But politics is war, and war is politics. You fail to recognize that you are at war because you don't necessarily see a gun in your face. But for those of you who study the military classics, such as Sun Tzu, you understand that most wars are won before they go to the battlefield. Then we got to talk about strategy. Strategy is the various objectives that you are going to use to carry out a victorious war. So you break the war down into strategy. Strategy is nothing more than the objectives that you're going to use. Many of us deal with strategy. So we do a little better than ideology. The problem is what? We're not dealing with tactics. What are the specific behaviors that you're supposed to engage in to bring about a successful war? In a conscious community, we're often stuck on what? Ideology and strategy, no tactics. And no understanding of military and political science, which means you're likely to lose the war because you're not following the code of war. Next, what is the code of white supremacy? There's 11 laws that every white person obeys on earth to keep you in your place. Remember, Europeans are only 10%, if that, of the world's population, but yet they have been able to dominate the other 90% for more than 500 years. They have created the most awesome social system ever devised called global white supremacy. And if you don't understand global white supremacy, not only will you not be able to understand anything else, but you also will fall sucker or victim to the racist because you don't understand the laws that he lived by. So let's talk about their code. The 11 laws that every white person lives by. I don't care if they're in 4th grade, 8th grade, 12th grade, 21, 41, 81, all white people follow these laws. And you need to recognize what they are. Number 1, never let blacks know what you're thinking. Intentionally mislead them if you must. Never let black people know what you're thinking. A lot of you often get upset when you find out that you've been lied to by a coworker. You find out that you've been lied to by a white neighbor. You find out that you've been lied to by your boss. Not only is it within their nature to lie, but it is a part of military science to lie because the art of all war is deception. So while you're getting angry at the white man, you're failing to recognize that he's practicing military science. The reason you get angry when you get lied to by a European is because you fail to recognize that he is your enemy. But he doesn't fail to recognize that you are his. You fail to recognize that she is your enemy, but she doesn't fail to recognize that you are hers. And so every interaction between a white person and a black person is never neutral, it is never non-political, it is always political. Every discussion, every conversation, every voicemail, every text message is in fact a mini battle. And you gotta recognize that every time you are up front with a European, that you are engaged in subtle combat with your enemy. And if you mistake that subtle combat for friendship, for camaraderie, then you will end up getting fired. You will end up losing your home. You will end up being arrested because you're trying to become friendly with someone who is an enemy. Number 2, always try to figure out what they are thinking and planning so you can disrupt it or capitalize upon their genius. White folk are always trying to do what? Uncover what you are thinking. Always trying to do that. Why? Because they are a minority. They must absolutely understand what the majority is doing to stay in front. Because in terms of pure numbers, they will lose. So the only way to make sure that they ensure a victory is to do what? Outthink you by figuring out what you're doing beforehand. And some of us, because we still believe in good white people, are often falling prey to the tactics and strategies of white supremacy. Number 3, always appeared to be friendly and humanitarian, never appeared to be aware that you belong to or identify with the race that rules. Every time you come in contact with a European, they're acting like they don't understand racism. Can you explain it to me? They act like they don't understand the black experience. Can you explain it to me? They act like they don't understand the psychoacademic war against black males. Can you explain it to me? They act like they don't understand mass incarceration. Can you explain it to me? That is deliberate. They're supposed to play dumb in order to make you dumb. So you gotta recognize when you're dealing with the enemy, not only do they know what you're going through, they set it up and they support it 100%. Some of us are often hoodwinked by who? White liberals. Europeans who appear to sympathize with the black cause. You are being suckered. There is no such thing as the liberal European. The blatant racists and the undercover racists are both fighting for the same thing, dictatorship over African people. There's no such thing as a liberal. There is no white liberal walking the face of this earth who would willingly give up their white supremacy card to be equal with you. William Lloyd, let's go to William Garrison. He started the American anti-slavery movement. Everybody thought he was the best white man that ever lived. He was fighting for black people to get out of slavery, or so we thought. But when the Civil War ended in 1865, my ancestor, Frederick Douglass, asked him, why are you disbanding the American anti-slavery movement? And he said, because slavery is over. And Frederick Douglass said slavery is not over until the African has the right to vote, to get an education, and to be employed to take care of his family. And what did William Lloyd Garrison say to Frederick Douglass? He said, I was not fighting for equality. I was fighting for an end to slavery. And many of you fail to realize that the Europeans that you are working with, those Europeans, are not fighting to make you equal. They're simply fighting so you can suffer a little less. Number 4, look for blacks you can use to advance your cause. This is never difficult, as most of them identify with the oppressors in the first place. Always look for black people who are sympathetic to the white supremacist crusade. Now some of us say, why would any African be sympathetic to his enemy? That's because many Africans still don't recognize that the European is their enemy. And then you have to question yourself. Right now we are in the what? Hollywood shopping season. How many of you are voluntarily taking your money to Macy's? Voluntarily taking your money to the malls, making rich white and Asian people richer, recognizing that they are your enemy. The dollars in your pocket are some of the most potent weapons that you can ever use in a war against your enemy. Particularly in the United States of America, where you are outmanned militaristically and can never win an armed struggle. Why? Because number 1, you are in lesser numbers. You have less resources and you don't command the land. Whenever a smaller army has defeated a larger army, it's by doing what? Drawing them into their own land. That's how Cuba won Bay of Pigs. That's how Vietnam won against the United States. That's how our brothers and sisters in 1993 whipped the United States behind in the middle of the ghetto in Somalia because they drew them in to their own land. So we gotta recognize military science, black people. Some folks going around saying we need to get guns and start fighting the cracker. That's ridiculous. You'll get the whole race exterminated. Most importantly, because what? You don't have an international ally. That's one of our biggest problems. We don't have an international ally as a nation in exile. And by the way, I'm 100% unapologetically African. If you have a problem with that, that's your business. I'm an African. Africa from the soul of God. I am an African. Yesterday, today, tomorrow, always will be. Number 5, use religion to gain their confidence. They are a religiously immature people, as historically, whenever we endorse their gods, it opens up an opportunity for exploitation. They tend not to think clearly under the influence of religion and have a natural inclination to care about other people more than they care about themselves. That's why the megachurch is not a threat to the state. That's why T.D. Jakes was George Bush's #1 point man in the black community, and that came out of George Bush's mouth. Why would the biggest black preacher be close friends with one of the worst races that we've ever had to encounter? Because the black church is an extension of the white supremacist establishment.
Right.
Number 6, always remember, no matter what they say or do, to keep your dignity. Never forget that you belong to the white race that rules, but never profess this, as it is the mark of the politically immature white person